Humility comes in many forms, and sometimes we don't recognize how much our current situation is a contrast to how we may have grown up. When you listen to this gentleman's story, it will amaze you, it will astonish you, it will get you thinking about your own life. Welcome, NFL free agent, strong safety, free safety. This guy's dynamic. He is on the field, but just needs an opportunity to make that a reality. Welcome to the show, Houston Baptist's own Curtis Thomas. Curtis, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking your time out to talk to me this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for coming on, and I know that you're working on some things right now, and of course in Houston, things aren't exactly peachy keen as people are trying to find a way to get warmth. They're trying to find a way to get food, shelter. So it's a tough situation in Houston. Hashtag Houston Strong. Everybody needs to understand what's going on in Houston right now. There was a conversation surrounding how I'm calling out all these NFL players by Mr. Davenport. And it's not just the NFL players, but look, J.J. Watt's the first one to speak up. It's his hometown. It's where he is. And I think everybody in the sporting industry and outside of that, entertainers included, anybody who has at least $1 million laying around right now or something they can't afford can certainly contribute to this cause in Houston and what's going on right now. Look, this city is ravaged. Unless you've been under a rock or hiding in the clouds, this city is underwater. So I have to ask you right now, Curtis, how are you and your family holding up?
We're holding up pretty well. The first couple of days it's kind of hard, seeing the flooding and having to evacuate and seeing many cars being stranded and bayous over flooded, and it was a tough thing to take in. But just through prayer, just faith, and just having the desire to help others, and each one helping each other to overcome. We're starting to get back that strength and get back to, where we were better hurt.
Yeah, it's a long road to recovery right now for Houston and everybody there in Houston. So my heart goes out to everybody who's dealing with this tragedy, this act of Mother Nature. As a young man, you had grown up in the city of Houston, living with your mom and 9 other siblings. Yes, I said 9. For those that weren't listening, I said 9 siblings. That's a lot to contend with. Even if you were 2 parents, it's still an issue. The conditions you were raised in a relatively well-known community called Anchor's Home, what was it like growing up there in the projects for you and your 9 siblings?
It was tough. Growing up, single-parent home, seeing, we also had different fathers. Mine, I didn't get opportunity to know my other brothers and sisters. They end up leaving. So I know my mom and her kids. So it was kind of a tough thing for us growing up. We had to overcome a lot of adversity. A lot of times only having bread and bologna that need to separate through all the kids. Sometimes no light, no food. We went through times where it flooded over there too, and we had to house families, and we was only having a couple of boxes of cereal and oatmeal and noodles. So it was pretty tough. But I was able to get on a little league team, the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club there. And I, really devoted myself to playing sports and got my mind off all the issues at home, not knowing how we're going to eat, not knowing how, we're going to overcome certain challenges. But football was my way. And, going in middle school, ended up going through CPS custody just because of our struggles and different challenges that we had. End up separating my entire brothers and sisters. And one I still haven't seen until today. The others who kind of grew up now end up going home. They see my mother go to jail. My grandma's house burning down.
Let's talk about all those things. Let's dive into each one of those segments, because I mean it was a place, and I'll be honest with you, be the first one to say it. I was in a very similar situation growing up. I lived right down the street from the projects. I went to school with a lot of hateful kids, and kids are mean anyway. Whether you're in sports or not, you're still mean. And probably meaner while they're in it, which is another conversation. But was it somewhere you believe you would eventually find your way out of it? I mean, even if you didn't have sports, if you were to take sports out of the equation, do you even see yourself exiting that type of environment to thrive somewhere else?
Honestly, it was more so a day-by-day thing. Just really didn't know, I had no direction. I really had no guidance. I saw friends and they went into, drug life and robbing and doing a lot of different things that I knew for myself I wanted something better. So I really just took, sports real serious. I began to hear testimonies of other people that took sports and their degrees and things like that. So I followed that same pattern.
I'll be honest, when I look at young kids such as you were, I think to myself, man, how do they find a way? What is the designation? I mean, I know you're playing sports and that's great, but was it something that you recognized while you were playing that said, I think that I could do something here with my life? Is there a way out of here? Or do you think that sports was the ultimate way to exit the realities that were facing you and make you look ahead instead of looking behind?
For me, I just wanted to find a love or a passion for something. I know going in the projects, the education quality, being in a Title I school, you wasn't going to get the most, quality education, books and all different things. So I just saw myself, okay, whatever I had was set before me, I was just going to use that. And in that time, I began to really learn about God and just studying the Word of God and just having faith in God and just believing and knowing everything was going to be all right for me.
Since the Lord had accepted you, were there steps that you were trying to accomplish that you wanted to make sure that your mom was seeing you, was even recognizing you, was looking at you and saying, wow, this guy, my son's a standout. He's going to do something, and I'm more previous to her being jailed. But when you refer to somebody, you're trying to get the attention from, you're trying to grab the awareness to be recognized outside of 9 other siblings, which I'm sure is an issue all in of itself. Was there something you're trying to do to get her attention, to get her to recognize who you were individually and have some hope?
For my mom, it was more so heavy for her just experiencing a lot of different things. She had my older brother at 16, so she was still young herself. And, going to jail and being told you're not getting your kids back and putting her on probation for 10 years, that's a lot of different things that she was facing. So for me, it was kind of, as I began to rise in my talent level and start getting college interest and things like that, she didn't know even how to even celebrate or rejoice with me in that time. But it wasn't until my senior year, she began to come out and come to games and out college, and they was recruiting me and taught me in the newspapers and things like that. And then she began to take up on it and embrace it a little bit more.
The reason why I'm asking is because sometimes we as young men and women go do the negative things to really get our parents' attention. And I'm not saying the good stuff, I'm talking about the bad stuff, getting in trouble with the law, nature. And you didn't have anybody to mentor you, to pull you in, to say, Curtis, hey man, what are you doing? You know, what's going on here? 9 times out of 10, kids that do not have a positive male role model to look up to will fail because they don't feel that reinforcement, which is so vital to young men who are trying to grow as well as young women in their respective lives.
Yeah, for me, I had coaches and things like that, but the only motivation I had was because those coaches, they still had their sons and daughters, and you know, they wasn't as well off. So for me, they had love for me. They seen the potential in me and telling me about you can't have an attitude, and hey man, you can make $1 million one day with your talent, your athletic ability. You know, it was encouraging, but it still wasn't, you know, negating the fact that I was still going through CPS and still living from house to house and still had not a parent, you know, direction or guidance. So the only thing I can really know was the word of God and truly just trust God and just do prayer and believing. And that was the strength to me. That was the motivation for me.
Now, you were trying to separate yourself without actually separating yourself from what other people were trying to put you into. It's almost as if when you grow up, somebody could say, this is where you fit in, this is where you don't fit in. Was there any type of identity issues that you were facing in regards to other kids around you that were, because look, let's face it, kids are bullies. Well, some of them are, not all. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I was bullied as well, so I understand what that's like. But did you try to find a way to separate yourself in such a way that people can't pick on you, that you cannot become the point of reference to them?
I would say I wasn't really picked on, I guess, because of the neighborhood that I grew up in. So it was known for it's a bad neighborhood, you know, in Houston. So it was kind of, a lot of people were scared of people that come from there. But I was kind of picked on in terms of I didn't always have the nice clothes, or when I was a senior in high school, I didn't have a car, you know, I was still riding the bus. You know, I was free to reduce lunch. You know, people was able to go buy lunch and things like that. It was hard for me to find a job. But I was always still a likable person because, you know, I loved everybody. You know, I had friends with all nationalities, special education, life skills. You know, I was a top athlete, so I would always have lunch with the athletes and the life skills and special education. And they would always admire, you know, things like that. And really it was a blessing in itself to me because it would always, you know, give me that extra boost to go out there and have a great game. So I was always more so a likable person.
When you start playing football, we're talking about football more specifically. This is Rudy Reyes, joined by Curtis Thomas, right here on the Brewdog Show. This guy is an NFL free agent running back. We're going to dive into more of who he is, how he grew up, and how he was able to get to where he is right now. It's still a work in progress. So, when you start playing football at the young age of 8, Pop Warner is a way to start something in your life. However, during your earlier years, tragedy struck when you entered the beginning of your 8th grade school year. We were talking about the force, and I say this as being a force because Child Protective Services is a force to be reckoned with, especially when you're part of the separation between you and your 9 other siblings. And I think to myself, this is tragic. I mean, I know that your situation at home is not anywhere near ideal, but being separated from your siblings, kids that you grew up living with and knowing and eating the same bologna and bread and fighting over the cereal and things of that nature, I guarantee that the CPS and having them force the issue to remove you from your mom's care and in turn sending your mom to jail at the same time had to have been extremely traumatic for you. Did you realize what was going on? And what was running through your mind when all of this took place?
It was kind of a shell shock for me. You know, I was young, middle school, coming home from a district football game, and coming home and seeing my mom, my two older brothers, my older brother and sister, you know, on the couch crying, and not seeing my other siblings there and understanding that they're gone. You know, so, and it put me in a dark place. You know, my heart was bitter, sorrow about many days and nights. But it just lit a fire in me to you know, to really, you know, take this football serious from that time. And that was like my escape for me.
I think sometimes we have something to escape to, but I think it was more about escaping from the nightmare and the tragedy. And I call it a tragedy because anything that happens in your life that forces you to get out of familiar areas, familiar places, familiar people, and to relocate and start moving you around a variety of places is definitely tragic. And I would never wish this on anyone ever, much less anything even remotely like this, but Child Protective Services decided to split up custody of your siblings in various locations as your mom was sent to jail. Well, what was it like playing football at a young age and realizing that all of this was going on around you?
It was tough. You know, sometimes I just couldn't handle the hurt. So I had some anger problems where I had a counselor, you know, would try to counsel me and talk with me and, you know, how to come through those issues. And I'm thankful of my counselor because he's not one of the pastors at the church that I attend. So that was a true blessing to have such a man like that in my life at that time.
That's really tough. I mean, it's good to finally get somebody in, but all this damage had already ensued. It already happened. It was all said and done. Did you feel that you were scarred? You needed more therapy, more help, more conversation, more people to reach out to you to give you the assistance that you needed to get back to what you were doing before?
Yes, sir. I just knew football in itself wasn't going to be the only answer because I knew football wasn't going to cure a broken heart. You know, anger, you know, and, you know, even just some little words, you know, somebody talking with you and a pat on the back. I mean, it's a temporary fix. You know, you feel good for the time. But when you're by yourself, those emotions and those thoughts, they come back again. So, you know, so this what truly moved me even more to God. And this what helped me, you know, to overcome those things in my life.
It must have been very tough to handle, and clearly being able to make the decision to stay with your grandmother, but it was a select few due to the number of siblings your grandmother, and she couldn't house all of you. I mean, there were 10 total. I don't think anybody has that type of room unless they're a multimillionaire. We're not talking about Annie. We're talking about now relocating. And then, as a part of the relocation, the separation ensues. So now all your siblings are in different places with family members, and you were fortunate enough to be with your grandmother. What was it like as a young adult to know that you had no choice but to part from them?
Oh man, that was a situation that only God could bring me out. You know, at that time I was, you know, having suicidal thoughts and going through a lot of different depressions. And you know, to have your mom take away from you and, you know, have your grandmother, you know, really come to grips to say, you know, I really can't handle you all, you know, and really didn't have too much family member and too much support. So it really put me in a deep depression. And I had all types of dreams and things, you know, where, you know, just suicidal. But I just remember the power of prayer. And this is what helped me truly, tremendously, to come out of those dark places and, you know, and truly get myself on the right path and uplifted in my, you know, really seeking to graduate and not only graduate by going to college and, you know, and then I began to see a new opportunity and seeking to play in the NFL.
I think as though you were looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. You were looking at and focusing on the positivities and leaving the negativities behind you, leaving them far in the dust in a distant memory. There's a quote on the side of your mirror that says, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. And I believe that's what you were looking at. An object that was way in the distance, but you were too focused on what was in front of you to even bother trying to gauge that distance. So I give you props for being able to do that, to find your way through and battle through all the darkness and all the negative things that you were pressed into. But from there, you wanted to stay. And because you couldn't keep all of them, your siblings went to family members and they saw them as a proverbial meal ticket. And I know it's tough. It's tough to talk about. It's tough to even say. But I mean, you had no contact with them, and you were the oldest. You're third oldest. You stayed to live with your grandmother, but somehow, some way, more tragedy had found its way creeping into your environment. Your grandmother's house was burnt down to the ground. You had suspected that your brother had burnt the house down. What made staying with your grandmother from the onset appealing to you?
Just the part that to be with my grandmother. She was always there for us. Always there to lend a helping hand. Whatever we need, she was there. And to be with her was just a sense of peace and fulfillment. But it was just, you know, I can only say I believe that just God had more for me, like that He didn't want my peace just to be in that. So, you know, going through that and the separation from my grandmother, that was like I would say something that'll, you know, break your back, in other words. But I just thank God I was able to get through it. I know a lot of people wouldn't been able to make it through all those different afflictions and trials at a young age, but I just thank God He saw fit to help me.
You know, as a young man myself, of course I'm not old yet, I realized that I could have made 1,000 wrong decisions growing up. I could have made the worst decisions possible. I could have followed other people. I could have followed what they wanted to do, what they wanted me to do. And I probably wouldn't be here talking to you today. But I recognize that despite my environment, I recognize that it was stable enough, despite you're going to have sibling rivalries and arguments, things of that nature. There is no perfect household, doesn't exist. But for you, it was a stable environment. It enabled you to grow it. You developed as a young man in. And it was horrible to feel as though someone would use a kid as a meal ticket. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. How did it make you feel knowing that, in fact, that was the case, that your siblings were used as basically food and money to help the respective families that were housing them get ahead?
Um, it just showed me that the saying that they say blood is thicker than water is not true. You know, you even have issues with family members inside, you know, that your family, that's just their mindset and that's just who they are as a person, you know, and you mean, you love them, but wrong is wrong. And to go through that and see that, it, you know, it throws another curveball at you. You know, so, but like every other thing, you got this, you know, you just go through it with the right attitude and the right mindset and just, you know, and you really just pray for them at the most because that's the only thing that can really change them unless they want to change themselves. But that was another hard thing, you know, to see that also family members look at your siblings as money to get financial gain from the government and things like that. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, literally. And you hear about it all the time, how kids are abused in emotional, psychological, sexual, things of that nature. But I believe that it was more damaging to know that they were being utilized as food to help bring the food and keep the food coming in. And you know, there have been cases where you use food stamps and turn that in for money back in the day. Be able to get things at the store that you couldn't otherwise buy with food stamps and things of that nature. But how did it make you feel knowing that if in fact that your brother did burn down the house, I mean, was it proven? Did you find out after the fact, or were you just suspicious that he had done that?
No, they went through investigation and everything, and my brother he was young and, you know, doing a lot of different things off impulse, and but thanks be to God, my grandma, she was able to still, you know, do her insurance. They were able to, redo her house and things like that. And but you know, I felt more so for my grandmother because I think that was the thing that she came to realize that I'm not at my age and where I am. I'm not able to take all these different, you know, the age groups and how we were and watching over and seeing after all of us. She just knew that it was just too much for her.
I'm sure that it would be too much for anybody, but the older that you are, the less likely you can take something like this. And to know, forget about the house burning down, but to know that somebody had something to do with it that was related to you. That, by far, is the worst part of all. Was he prosecuted by your grandmother? Did the city attorney find out? I mean, was he the one who did it?
I believe she found out through the investigation. I'm not for sure who it was, you know, but she really didn't want to broadcast it or anything, but she just kind of took it on and, you know, and just understood where he was, and she kind of had sympathy for him, but she still kind of talked with him and things like that, and you know, that's just kind of how she took it on, and to me, she's a true soldier.
Yes, she is, but you know what? She had the next best thing, which was you. You were there with her to comfort her, to talk to her. Sometimes moral support is probably the best type of support you could probably ever get. Now, what's really interesting is that growing up, you didn't have that. Somehow you had to find a way, create the image of being able to show sympathy when there was almost none given to you. That's commendable. It's amazing. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show on the Two Life Stews Radio Network, joined by Curtis Thomas He's a strong safety, free safety, looking at getting a shot in the NFL. And we're going to talk about why here in the other half of the segment. Curtis, you ended up having to stay in a hotel after that, and then found yourself in a homeless situation in the 9th grade. The 9th grade. I'm still blown away by that. But what that meant for you is that you were staying in a variety of houses, going couch to couch, bed to bed, which didn't prove anything unless it's even called stable. If you want to call it stable, then your definition is incorrect. But I think it provided even less stability for you than you ever had prior. But that changed. You ended up staying with a friend during the rest of your time while in high school, trying to pick up the pieces to make something of your life. We're not talking football, we're talking about life. There's life outside of football, there's life inside of football. But life was tough and continues to be that way. You have a level of resilience. If I had a hat, I would take it off to you right now, Curtis. I commend you for your resilience, your perseverance. But what was going through your mind when it came to the realization that you were, homeless?
Just here we go again. Just another chapter, another stage that I got to go through. And I just kind of reverted back to what I always did, just prayer, belief, and dedication. And I just, it wasn't time for nobody to pity me or be sad for me or nothing like that. It was just, though I know none of these things were something that I did for myself, on myself, or brought it on myself. I just had to just go through this here, and whatever gonna come out of it, I just got to find the good. And that's what I did.
That's tough. That's difficult. But I think that as we check the chat room, Cedric Galloway has some positive feedback. As long as you keep your positive outlook, you'll be successful whatever you do. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I've interviewed a lot of hundreds and hundreds of players. And I think that this is by far the most heartbreaking story I've ever heard. How did the opportunity come about by being able to stay at a friend's house? And we're talking not just a year, 6 months, couple weeks. We're talking your entire high school tenure. How did that come about?
Well, I grew up in a neighborhood, so I knew a lot of different people there. They knew my mom was in jail. What happened to my grandma. So it was just, it was kind of from house to house, and then, a lot of times they didn't have a lot of food themselves. So I was just kind of only could do one night, and still try to make a way to go to school and things like that. Because also in the neighborhood you had kids dropping out 9th grade, 10th grade. And, and I knew I didn't want that for myself. And though that opportunity, I could have took that and took the easy route, but I said, no, I'm gonna stand through it, and go through school. I'm gonna make the best out of it, and end up happening. I got invited to play on the AAU basketball team, and one of my teammates' mother, she knew my situation, and she asked me to come stay with her, and that I could finish my high school, year at her house.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing for her to undertake. Somebody who's not even related to her, that doesn't really know all that well, doesn't understand the intangible things that somebody can bring while living there at their house. And I find that to be very commendable as well. When you look back at it, and I know we're not talking 20 years ago or 30 years ago or anything of that nature, but when you look back at it, did you feel as though it was the best possible decision you could have made at that point in your life?
Yes, I do. Because I felt that if I would have went to a family member or somebody in my neighborhood, you know, I could have either took the wrong road, you know, because I had family members who were looking for money. So they would have tried to force me to try to make some type of money, you know, drug selling or something. Or, you know, or stand with somebody in the neighborhood, or they was already jumping out of school and, you know, and mine was just not focused on school or anything. So at that time, I just looked at it all and I was just so grateful. You know, she had two kids of her own and, you know, going through a situation of herself and to bring me in, not in the best ideal situation. I just truly just, you know, thank her and I just thank God because that was really the, you know, a savior for me in going through that whole situation, and it gave me a new breath of fresh air.
Did you feel as though you were part of the family? I mean, was there any way you can tell that there was any differentiation between you being there and her kids being there? Did she treat you just like she would treat them?
Oh yeah, I called her my second mother. She really, she taught me a lot. She taught me how to drive. I got my driver's license there. Taught me how to cook some things. Taught me about manners and how we should be as young men, and even treating young ladies and how we should be. She took a lot of time. You know, she would play basketball with us and hug on us and hit us on the cheek and tell us to have a great day. And, you know, she was really, she really brought some joy to me.
When it comes to that relationship, you still talk to her to this day, you still communicate with her, and I'm sure you have more than just 5 words to say to her when you talk to her.
Yeah, when I talk with her today, she always tells me to stay encouraged. You know, about my pursuit of the NFL and just everything I've been going through with that. She always tells me, she say, those guys out there good, but you better stay encouraged. And that's what I keep with me.
That's phenomenal. That's fantastic. You went on to graduate high school with her help. You went on to miraculously play for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and you stayed there for 1 year. Then started as a true freshman. However, you were not able to acquire the type of mentoring or guidance in a collegiate situation, forcing you to leave back home to end up re-attending Texas Southern. After going back home and finding yourself getting evicted and going back to the same old situation. Curtis, you seem to have been in a very solid situation in Minnesota. Why'd you leave?
Oh, Minnesota is one that kind of scratched my head today. You know, I was there, started as a true freshman. You know, I was being told 2 more years, you'll either be a first-round draft pick. You know, I was going to be, you know, the Big Ten, you know, All-American. That really was going to change the face of Minnesota. And I truly believe that. But when Coach Willis left, because when he recruited me, I was real close with him. And when he told me he was leaving, it brought me right back to my childhood life, with seeing my motherly, grandmotherly, and all, you know, the different people that was been part of my life. So it just brought that back to me. And I just didn't know how to handle it. You know, so my mindset was like, okay, I'm going back home. Because the relationship with the other coaches, I really didn't have it. You know, so I ended up getting a call from A&M, and I thought I was going to Texas A&M, but they didn't have any scholarships, and then I went to U of H, and U of H didn't have any more scholarships, so they were telling me that I need to sit out, you know, for a semester, and then, you know, I could come in the spring. That's what A&M and U of H said. And then I got a call from Washington State, but I didn't have any finance to even get to Washington State. And then Arizona State was going to call me to offer me, but my phone got turned off and I couldn't pay the bill, you know, to even get in contact with them. So I had to settle for Texas Southern, a school I didn't really initially want to go to. I just felt like it wasn't going to give me an opportunity to get to the league. But that was all I had, and I was being forced to go there, you know, because I couldn't stay at my mom's house or my sister's house or any of that. So I was just pushed to kind of, you know, find a school, and that was one I went to.
There were obviously some missing pieces between the mentorship or leadership that was not available to you. You were talking about how your family, your mom was gone, your grandmother was gone. It was almost like the feeling of abandonment. Was that an issue while you were at Minnesota?
Yeah, I kind of felt that way. Just really never had that guidance. You know, a lot of guys, when they get to college, when they face adversity, you know, they have their fathers there, or a certain coach or something like that. But for me, being a young kid, going through what I went through, leaving all the way from Texas all the way to Minnesota, believing that I could change the program around, and then I have the one coach who I truly trust in, believe in, and leave you. It was like it was a shock for me.
The reason why I ask is because you found yourself in an identical situation once you arrived back into Houston. I know you didn't want to go to Texas Baptist, but you found a way to, again, you already, at this point, you already maintained the ability to persevere through the issues that you've already been through in your past life. So something like this was just another day, was another, you know, drop in a bucket, if you will. But at that point, you had thoughts of suicide, feelings of emptiness, and this was all that life could offer you. And you clearly, it's not something that you wanted. Your faith was being tested. What was it about giving your life to God that changed you forever?
It was that I seen that everything I was trying to do, I was trying to find in someone or something, and it just wasn't materializing, wasn't coming to pass for me. So at the lowest point of my life, after going to Texas Southern, I played football, and then I had a workout with the Houston Texans. And I didn't end up, they told me they was going to sign me, but they didn't end up signing me. And then at that moment, I lost all my money, and car broke down on me, and didn't have anywhere to stay again. And I was like, okay, if this was what life had to offer, then I don't want it. But I was just thank be to God that I had a teammate of mine who just had given his life to God, began to tell me about the Holy Ghost and how you could be delivered and changed in a new mind and a new direction. And I began to go to the church in Humble, called Refuge Temple Ministries. And I began to hear the word of God and began to just give up my life and stop listening to the rap music and being with the women I wasn't married to and all those different things and just truly just surrender my life to God and I got filled with the Holy Ghost. Didn't even know what it was. But I just knew it was a new mind, a new spirit. I wasn't angry. I didn't have bitterness. I had unforgiveness. I was able to love people and treat them right and have a right spirit, a new mind. And I've truly found true joy and peace in God. And from there, I had opportunity to work out with the Green Bay Packers. And then the Green Bay Packers, they were texting me and telling me, hey, we're working on bringing you up and it's going to happen for you. And it didn't happen again. But it was like my shine of my faith. I went through it one time, then out at the right time. Then went through it again. It didn't happen for me. So I went to go play arena to get some film. The Los Angeles Rams was telling me, hey, we're going to give you a shot. And it didn't happen for me. They were telling me, hey, we like your film. And, and then all of a sudden, the change of heart. So it was like, hey, okay, now the 3 times you've been through it. Is it not for you? But in all of itself, I was always trying to find the good. Hey, was I better prepared? Or was it the right time? Or maybe it was some things that I still needed to work out of me to make sure I don't fall into money and women and all these drugs, all these different things you hear, and really truly be devoted to God. So now I can go through it the right way and feel that when the opportunity do come, that I don't forget who did it for me, who made the opportunity for me.
I've spoken to a lot of guys, and a lot of them will say, well, I didn't get signed for this reason, I didn't get signed for that reason. And there sometimes isn't a reason. Sometimes they don't, and you know what's interesting about the NFL is that they don't have to give you one. And I believe that despite NFL rosters being cut down right now, I mean, you have well over a huge unemployment line worth of NFL guys who either didn't work out there, they got injured and they were waived. We're talking about this yesterday on the Rude Dog Show right here on the Two Life Stews Radio Network. But I know that there's a positive for you out there. I know it's an NFL team that can use a strong. Heck, the Steelers just acquired Joe Hayden, who had been in the league for 7 years. Signed a multi-million-dollar contract, but because he has that time in. So your film time will gain you more awareness throughout the NFL. Look, coaches, general managers, if your backfield is hating life, and I know the Saints were a bit for Joe Hayden, you should really look at Curtis Thomas. The guy's 205, he has a 37-inch vertical, his broad's 10.3, 20-yard shuttle was 4.29, his cone was 6.8. The guy has speed, he has durability, he has flexibility and athleticism. And if you haven't listened to this story from beginning till right now, you've missed out on one of the humblest men I think I have ever met in my life. Despite the no's, despite the discouraging words, he still fights. He would be a solid asset to your NFL team, your NFL franchise. You want quality guys? Here's a quality guy right here on the Rude Dog Show. Right here. Where these coaches and GMs really look out to grab you.
It's 816-330-5358.
There you go. Curtis Thomas is readily available to you. Call him. You will not be disappointed. The guy is fast. He has collegiate experience. He has life experience. And more importantly, he's taller than 5'9", which is what most free safeties are at for height. He's 5'11". His 40 was 4.5. Again, his number is 816-330-5358. He's available. He's available now. Curtis, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me this afternoon. This has been a great interview. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to do everything I can to assist and hopefully talk to the right people and get you in somewhere, some type of spot with some team. I'll do my best. There are no guarantees in life, but I don't have to tell you that.
Yes, sir. I truly appreciate you, Rudy, just for the opportunity to be on the show and to tell my story, and I hope this have most importantly, to truly glorify God and to let them know that, no matter your situation, no matter what you might be going through, that is hope in God and that you can overcome. No matter what the obstacles are, if it's family, friends, people you're dependent on, life expectancy, dreams, goals, you're safe. You can continue. You can keep going. Encourage yourself.
Solid words from a solid man, a man of God. Thank you so much, Curtis. Ladies and gentlemen, Curtis Thomas, right here on the Rude Dog Show. I really appreciate it, Curtis. Thank you for coming on, and I wish you the best, and if whatever I can do after the interview to help you, I certainly will do my best. Well, that was Curtis Thomas, everybody. I mean, what a humble guy. What a story. What a story. If you don't recognize that he is a weapon in your secondary, the New Orleans Saints certainly need somebody like him since Joe Hayden was snagged up by the Steelers. New Orleans Saints, contact him. 816-330-5358. 816-330-5358. I want to give a special shout out to everybody in Houston right now. Hashtag pray for Houston. I hope everybody is safe out there or getting to safer ground. I know it's not easy to talk about, but I believe that there's a spot for everyone in this world, whether it's the NFL, the CFL, or whatever drives you, whatever your passion leads you to. But NFL teams, look, Chargers, Saints, Texans, Packers. You could use this guy right across the way from Josh Hawkins through my interview right here on the show. 816-330-5358. 816-330-5358. Give Curtis Thomas a call. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show, the Two Light Stews Radio Network. I will see everybody next week. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody on the chat and everybody right here on Facebook Live as well. We'll see you next week.